Hey everybody, Nike here. ANET has promised us that they're going to do PvE balance with a special focus on raiding that will be addressed in their quarterly balance updates after each PvP season. With the PvP season ending in a few weeks and the raid meta being more firmly established, I want to do a quick video about the changes I expect ANET to make for PvE balance. Do want to add that this is completely speculative and I have no actual knowledge or any of the changes, so this is all my guesswork based on my observations. So let's get into it. First up is the Condi Warrior. I am very sure that ANET will nerf this build. Simply put, it is far too high of DPS. There are times where other builds have similar DPS, but none of them are as easy to do as Condi Warrior. In the background footage, I am playing a tank version of the Condi Warrior build, and as you'll see by the end of the fight, I get nearly 20k DPS. As much as I enjoy this build, and having had a big hand in developing it for the PvE community, I completely understand why they would nerf it. As you can see, it completely trivializes a lot of raid boss mechanics, and it limits the design potential of future bosses ANET designs for the further wings. Either ANET has to leave the build in the game and design all the raid bosses around the idea that teams will bring 5 or more Condi Warriors, and they'll have to balance the enrage timers around that, or they can nerf the build and balance the raids around a more open meta. I think the path of least resistance and the path that ANET will take is to nerf the Condi Warrior. Secondly, I think Thief will receive some major buffs. Not only would I buff the direct damage of all dagger skills by 10%, including the auto attack chain, I would lower the initiative cost of Vault on the staff to 4 initiative. Additionally, I would expect Alacrity to increase the recharge rate of initiative. To balance that buff to Vault, I would lower the damage of weakening strikes but lengthen the duration of weakness so that it's a defensive skill rather than an offensive one. Lastly, for Thief, I would move Venom Share to Deadly Arts at the Master level. This way, a power build can utilize the nice utility boosts of Shared Basilisk Venom without hurting their DPS, and pure Condi builds won't be hurt by that change either. Third, I believe we will see a nerf to the Slick Shoes utility skill for the Engineer. Much like Condi Warrior, Slick Shoes limits the design of future bosses because all break bar mechanics ANET designs from now on will have to be designed with the existence of Slick Shoes in mind. So, much like the Condi Warrior, it's a lot more likely that Slick Shoes will just be nerfed and people will have to deal with break bars the way they were intended to be done. Fourth, I think Revenant is going to get a DPS nerf. The sword auto attack chain is simply far too easy to achieve high DPS with while providing significant team buffing utility. My expectation is that the Revenant sword auto chain will see a 10 to 15% hit overall and will be changed to be even more backloaded than it currently is, much like the Axe Warrior, so the penalty for interrupting your chain is much higher. On the buff side, I expect both Jalis and Ventari to receive buffs. I expect Ventari heals to be buffed to the point where replacing the Druid healer with a Revenant is a reasonable idea. Currently, a Revenant healer is significantly more micro work than a Druid, and does significantly worse healing than the Druid, and also provides less offensive team buffs. I expect Ventari, at the very least, to be buffed to Druid level healing. Lastly, and perhaps most controversially, I expect Chronomancer not to receive any major nerfs. Despite the fact that the raid meta revolves around perma-quickness and alacrity, I do not think it's going to be nerfed for one big reason. For the Mesmer to achieve these things, it has to sacrifice nearly all of its personal DPS. I do think ANET will change the mechanics of Veil Guardian Green AoE so that Distortion doesn't block all the damage, but that won't be a Chronomancer-specific nerf, and I expect they will change how all invulns work with that mechanic. I think the philosophy is and should be that you have to deal with the mechanics as intended rather than by bypassing them with DPS or ignoring them with invulns. Anyway guys, those are my 5 predictions for changes we may see when the next major balance patch happens in the first quarter of 2016. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm crazy or if you agree with me, or share your own thoughts about what you could see changing. Other than that, I will see you guys next time.